would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Congratulations to all of you who noticed that the show I did 2 days ago, I didn't do my usual pause in the word realtor. It's amazing the stuff you guys will contact me about. We will talk about things about the financial world crumbling around us. But the thing that generates the most emails over the last 2 days is the fact that for the first time since 2007, I did a show where I didn't say real tours. And why did I do it? I really don't know. I remember at the moment thinking, hey, I didn't do real tours. But I just went with it. And man, did you guys notice? Holy mackerel. At least I know you're paying attention. Thanks to all of you who pointed it out. I stopped counting at some point as to how many people noticed that little moment. But it cracked me up because I didn't get a single serious question about stuff. Well, no, that's not true. I got one or two. But I didn't really get it. As a ratio, everything serious was so eclipsed by that it really blew me away. I was laughing. So anyway, thank you for that. I needed a laugh. It's an interesting week for me. For a lot of you who've obviously been listening for a while or even just a couple of weeks, you know that my son is off to college. Tomorrow is Take the Boy to Seattle Day. I know I have a listener in Seattle who I was talking about potentially meeting up for a coffee. I'm not sure that's going to be able to happen. The schedule has rapidly been impacted with all sorts of your kid is now at our school type things that are happening. So no way to tell for sure what's going to happen. Here's what I can promise. Today's show is brand spanking new. Tomorrow's show is going to be a awesome interview. Make sure not to miss it. It's a great one. And that there is a halfway decent chance that shows on Monday and Tuesday next week will be reruns because there may not be much time for me to do anything while I'm in Seattle. However, I will be bringing the gear I need to do a show on the road. So I'm hoping to at least record some stuff, talk about some things while I'm out there. I'll either go way low tech and post a show that doesn't have all the usual music intro and all that other stuff because I won't have that kind of gear with me potentially, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So it's going to be a crapshoot. I apologize for not telling you one way or the other. If I'm able to make the time, I will. So we'll get a show because I'd love to do here's my feelings about Redmond because that's where my son's going to go. He's not actually in Seattle. He's east of Seattle, so where Microsoft is located. So Redmond is kind of the zone. And I do want to look at some properties because another one of my sons wants to go to the same school. So I'm toying with buying a multifamily unit in that area to see what's what. And I want to see what I can get for my money because I'm seeing a pretty good spread in terms of costs. So anyway, so there may be some of that. I may videotape it. I'm going to be bringing video gear with me. I've bought some new gear to give you folks who are listening on YouTube some more exciting content. So to be really honest, it's going to be more of a collection of raw material that I get over the course of these days of driving and doing stuff in the Seattle area. And I'm not really sure what's going to come out the other end, but I am going to use that content for something. So look out for that. It'll be coming. All I really wanted to do with this was to warn you that you may be having to deal with reruns on Monday and Tuesday. But there you go. All right. So 1 day later, we get further clarification on this whole Fannie Freddie thing we talked about. And, if it was small stuff, I'd say, you know what? I'll give everybody this update later. This is small beans, but it's not. What's really interesting is Freddie Mac, I'm quoting the article now from Housing Wire. Freddie Mac announced it would be extending its appraisal-free mortgage program to purchase loans starting September 1st of 2017. Fannie Mae's announcement quickly followed, offering its product effective immediately. So you can get this immediately from Fannie Mae, and you can get it on September 1st from Freddie Mac, which is now just a week away. So, half of 1/6, it's basically a wash. But this article gives us a little bit more details on who this can be applied to. Now, for those of you who've been listening to the show for a while, you know that on refinances, the program similar to this has existed for a while. I think you can make reasonable arguments on refis that you don't really need to do an appraisal. Typically, you end up with a drive-by appraisal. I know when I refied, the person didn't even have to come into the house. They literally did a drive-by refi, slightly more than a drive-by. They parked in the driveway and they walked around the house and then they left. And I think that's a sane thing, right? You're just making sure everything's still there. The walls are still there. There's not a lot of deferred maintenance. Maybe if you're an inspector and you come out, or an appraiser who's just doing a drive-by and you see tons of what looks like deferred maintenance, maybe then you check a checkbox that says, you know what, we should really get inside of this house, right? That all seems entirely reasonable and rational to me. Okay. By the way, I did just have a mocha. I'm actually still nursing it. So for this time of evening, my energy level's a little higher than normal. There you go. Another hit of caffeine. Just what I needed at late o'clock in the evening. Okay, both GSEs already had a program in place for appraisal-free refinances, as we mentioned. Earlier this summer, the program at Freddie Mac was started. Fannie Mae began offering appraisal-free mortgages in some of its refinances through its Day One Certainty program back in 2016, which we talked about. The answer from both companies was the same. After rising interest rates shifted the market from a refi market and more to purchase, the GSEs, government-sponsored entities, Fannie and Freddie, extended their programs to meet the needs of the shifting market, which is kind of goofy. Right? If you take a look at the market, with all the data we've discussed, anybody who was to take a rational look at the market would see enabling the buying side is not the solution to the problem, right? So we can just make sure that's always in your back pocket if anyone ever wants to talk to you about this stuff. Who qualifies? Now, this comes from the Fannie Mae Director of Collateral Policy, listed several eligibility criteria for Fannie's Property Inspection Waiver Program. So let's go ahead and get into some detail. I'm actually going to post this list to Pinterest, so feel free to check that out. Eligible transactions that are effective August 19th, 2017. So as we said, Fannie made it available immediately. 1-unit properties, including condos. So you can't do this with multi-unit properties. Limited cash-out refinance transactions, principal residences and second homes up to 90% loan-to-value. Investment properties up to 75% loan-to-value. So they'll still let you use this with investment properties if there's a 75% loan-to-value. I think that's actually pretty saucy for somebody who's an investor who may want to pull some money out of a property to use for something else. Again, given the challenges that I think face us in today's market, I think the smart move is for you to make sure that that's a comfortable number for you. We talked a little bit about how in times like this, where you have a reasonable expectation that things may not go well and you may need to be more nimble in your ability to accommodate lower rents to remain competitive and keep cash flow coming in on your properties, you may not want to carry as much loan encumbrances on the property. You may want to be a little bit more invested in it so that you've just got a bigger margin in which to be nimble and adjust in case bad things happen. I think for you renters in most markets, at least if you were in my market doing things, I would be less worried about it. But again, look at the history of your market. If things happened last time, when I say last time, I mean 2006, 2007, 2008. If in those timeframes, in the worst of the down market last time, you saw rents go down in your market where your investment property is, I would go with the assumption that that would happen again, that was to be a likely outcome. In my marketplace, that didn't happen. In yours, it may have happened, so be prepared. Cash out refinance transactions, principal residence up to 70% loan to value, second homes and investment properties up to 60% loan to value. That's kind of sexy. Purchase transactions, principal residences and second homes up to 80% loan to value ratings. loan case files that receive an approve eligible recommendation. So those are all the eligible transactions. If you meet those criteria, you're good to go. However, there is a list of things that make you ineligible. All right, so let's go down that list real quick. Number 1, properties located in a disaster-impacted area. And these are usually designated, right, by FEMA. So I'm guessing that's what they're talking about. It has to be designated a disaster impact area. 2, construction and construction to permanent loans. So these would be your bridge loans. These would be loans we've talked about before. If you're interested in developing a property, buying a lot, and then getting a loan that starts off with a interest rate that you've negotiated and all this stuff, and it stays the same loan all the way through the process, and at the end it turns into a regular mortgage. It changes from a property acquisition and building loan into a regular mortgage. 2 to 4 unit properties. I find that to be a very interesting one. You're eligible on the first list if you're a 1 unit property, but you're not eligible if you're a 2 to 4 unit property. So I'm guessing anything that goes into that realm of 5 or more that becomes commercial residential, those don't qualify either. So there you go there. Loan case files in which the value of the subject property provided to DU, the underwriter, is $1 million or greater. So if the property is over $1 million, you're ineligible. Home style mortgage products, renovation and energy. DU Refi Plus loan case files. Texas 50A6 loans. No clue what that is. I'm guessing it's a Texas specific thing. But if you've got one of those, you're ineligible for this no appraisal process. Leasehold properties, community land, trust homes, or other properties with resale restrictions. So these are typically properties that revert to someone else, right? And trusts and all these other types of things where there's sort of this automatic, it kicks back to someone else. I know you can do a leasehold in different styles to other people, and they're not going to loan on those. Cooperative units and manufactured homes are ineligible. DU loan case files that receive an ineligible recommendation, which of course makes sense. Loans for which the mortgage insurance provider requires an appraisal, or loans for which rental income from the subject property is used to qualify. So if the only way you're qualifying for the loan is if they include the rental income, then you're not eligible for this program. So a lot of interesting stuff. I think that kind of clears things up. We were talking before about wanting to know these things. And I think it's good. I think we're basically getting what we needed in terms to understand what the qualities are of this and whether or not investors are going to be able to take advantage of it. So let's go ahead and take a quick break here for a second. When we come back, we're going to do a little bit more real estate talk. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909.
Welcome back, everyone. The next thing I wanted to hit today is kind of interesting. It could help you make some decisions based on this data according to, in these markets, what do you want to do? Do you want to become someone who's providing a rental at a greater rate where you're going to draw more people? Because this is going to be data that seems like it's a warning sign not to be involved here, but it absolutely shows an opportunity. Now, what we're talking about is the top 10 least affordable rental markets. So if you own property in these markets already, for whatever reason, and you haven't turned it into a rental property, this could be a clue to you that now is the time to do it. If you have an opportunity to purchase something in one of these areas at an aggressively good price, or if you are considering doing flipping in these areas and you want to be aiming your flipped property directly at people who are kind of under the thumb of these kinds of prices, it's good to be calibrated to this kind of stuff. So let's run down the list. And what we're going to talk about is the area, and we're going to count the list down. We're going to go with how much money someone would need to make per hour to be able to afford housing. At least I believe that's what this number tells us. We'll talk about the average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment and the minimum wage in that area, and the average renter wage, and how many hours per week to rent a 2-bedroom home at the actual minimum wage. It's pretty startling. And if this demonstrates anything, it demonstrates a segment of the market that needs to be served, right? There's an awful lot of folks. When we're talking about averages here, that means an awful lot of people are falling into this category of not being able to get adequate housing. So for me, this screams a variety of things, right? Now, they're talking about 2-bedroom apartments or a 2-bedroom home of some kind. This cries out to me multifamily units, right? These are areas where folks are under such stress that you can get out there and start offering a product that's going to give you maximum return and potentially be very competitive against others, depending on how you purchase, right? So this gives you a lot of fuel right up front. However, also remember, also keep in mind, as you evaluate this, what goes up can come down. We've all learned that lesson, right? So if we start to see a downturn, what happens to the rents in these areas? And again, I would consult historical data in these areas to see how much of a hit they took in the last downturn, because that may be a warning to you that some of these aren't necessarily going to weather that scenario as robustly as others. All right. So, and I can comment on 2 areas here in terms of historical significance. I happen to be involved with 2 areas that are on this list. So we'll go through that. Number 1 on the list is Washington, and they don't mean Washington, D.C. They mean Washington State. You need to make $23.64 an hour in order to afford the average 2-bedroom apartment. At least that's what I'm getting from this list. Next, a 2-bedroom apartment on average is $1,229. The minimum wage is $11. The average renter wage is $17.77. And the hours you would have to work per week to rent a 2-bedroom home at minimum wage is $86. 86 hours, excuse me. And the math that they're using here is how much a renter would need to make per hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment while working 40 hours per week and paying 30% of their income toward housing. So they're assuming that this is only going up to 30%. So obviously this math would be very different if they're up to 50%. And remember, 50%'s the new sexy. 50% is the new black, because that's supposedly the loan to value ratio, right? If your payments are not loan to value, that's the new number that a lot of lenders are now willing to use in terms of calculating how much income versus expense you can have. Up to 50% of your income can now be taken up by a mortgage. So why don't we apply that same number to this? That seems like a contradiction to me. But this does come from the National Low Income Housing Coalition, which obviously would have a vested interest in making this sound as dramatic as possible. But no matter how you want to look at the numbers, I think this is a very accurate reflection of struggling areas in terms of rent. So that was number 10, Washington State. Number 9, Alaska. And it surprises me that Alaska is on this list. I have no idea what's going on in Alaska that makes it so tough, but you'd need to make $24.16 an hour in order for that 30% of your 40-hour week to add up to the average for a 2-bedroom apartment rental, which is $1,256. The minimum wage in Alaska is $9.80. The average renter wage is $19.11. And the hours to work per week to rent a 2-bedroom home at minimum wage would be 99 hours. I'd want to look more at the details of the math of that. Somehow I feel like we're being sold something weird here. Number 8 on the list, Connecticut. You need to make $24.72 per hour to make the numbers work in terms of the rental of a 2-bedroom apartment. 2-bedroom apartments are renting for, on average, $1,285 per month. The minimum wage in Connecticut is $10.10. The average renter wage is $16.97, and the hours to work per week to rent a 2-bedroom home at minimum wage would be 98. So let's pause here at Connecticut at number 8. And you're being sold an awful lot of assumptions here. Anybody who's actually trying to live off of minimum wage, that's kind of nuts. I don't think that's what minimum wage is for. And of course here, we also need to understand none of these people make minimum wage. The average renter isn't making minimum wage. They're making more than minimum wage. In every example we've looked at so far, ranging from $6 more in Washington to $10 more in Alaska to $6, $7, almost $7 more in Connecticut. We all have to kind of have a decision for ourselves on what purpose minimum wage serves or what low wages serve. My sons all make minimum wage. All my sons should probably make minimum wage or less. When it comes to knowing how to do a job, they haven't proven diddly squat to anybody. And once they do prove that they're reliable and they can do the job well, that's when pay increases should come, right? So anyway, I just thought I'd interject that. I'm sure some people hate me now because I said that. Number 7, New Jersey, $27.31 would need to be your hourly income in order to have that balance. Remember, 30% of your income going towards housing. A 2-bedroom apartment is $1,420 in Jersey. Minimum wage in Jersey is $8.44. Average renter wage is $17.86. And the hours to work per week to rent two-bedroom home at minimum wage would be 129 hours. Number 6, New Jersey, man. I just don't know about New Jersey. It's the most left state in the union, or not politically. It's the one people leave the most, right? We've had a couple of studies we've covered here where New Jersey is being evacuated by a lot more people than are entering, primarily because of a lot of the tax policies they have. Number 6, Massachusetts, $27.39 would need to be the hourly wage for 30% of your income to cover that 2-bedroom apartment, which in Massachusetts will on average cost you $1,424. The minimum wage in Massachusetts is $11, and the average renter wage is $19.70. The hours to work per week to rent a 2-bedroom home at minimum wage is 100. And now we're going to get into some areas that we've talked about before. Well, with a couple of surprises. Number 5 is New York. $28.08 is what you need to make. Again, assuming 30% of what you make goes to your rent. A 2-bedroom apartment on average in New York is $1,460, which clearly is talking about the entire state of New York because you can't rent diddly squat in Manhattan for that amount of money. Minimum wage, $9.70 in the state. Average renter wage is $23. So the average renter in the state actually makes $23.98 an hour. So they're making a lot more than minimum wage on average. Hours to work per week to rent a 2-bedroom home at minimum wage, 116 hours. I really wish that wasn't the number they used. I really wish they used what the average renter wage is because that's more of a realistic reflection of what's actually happening. The numbers they're giving us indicate a very small number of people are actually living off of minimum wage. Number 4, Maryland, $28.27 is what you need to make per hour to make that 30% mark cover your 2-bedroom apartment, which in Maryland will cost you $1,470. Minimum wage in Maryland is $9.25 an hour, and the average renter wage is $16.88. And the hours to work per week to rent a 2-bedroom home at minimum wage would be 122 hours. And there's another fallacy there. If I'm a minimum wage guy, I'm not living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm living in a freaking studio, or I'm sleeping in a van down by the river. Because I'll tell you what, there's just that's an unrealistic set of circumstances. I think for most folks, I sure wouldn't be renting a 2-bedroom. Would you? If all you were trying to live off of was minimum wage. Number 3, my home ground, California. You'd need to make $30.92. A 2-bedroom apartment will cost you on average $1,608. I wish in Silicon Valley that was true. Minimum wage in California is $10.50, and that is, in fact, what my children make per hour in their respective jobs. The average renter wage, though, is $20.66. The hours to work per week to rent a 2-bedroom home at minimum wage, 118 hours. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. California's nuts. Some deals can still be had in California. You need to be careful, though, and you need to be very aware of, again, what effect downturns have had in the California market in the areas you're looking in the past. There are some areas that actually managed to weather the downturn pretty well. Sacramento actually did pretty well, but Sacramento is also enjoying a high right now that it wasn't enjoying before. That might play into it. Although it was up quite a bit. I mean, there was a lot of expansion in Sacramento up into areas north like Rockland and whatnot. Number 2 on our list. This one won't surprise you. Washington, D.C., $33.58 an hour is what you'd need to make for 30% of your income to cover the average 2-bedroom apartment, which in Hawaii will cost you $1,746. Minimum wage in Hawaii is $12.50 an hour, and the average renter's wage is actually $27.20. And the hours to work per week to rent a 2-bedroom home at minimum wage is 107 hours in Washington, D.C. And my understanding is that Washington, D.C. is a relatively small area, but that rent even actually seems oddly small. And number 1 on our list, the other state I have a lot of knowledge on, is Hawaii. Maybe not all of the state, primarily Oahu, which is where my rental property is. You need to make $35.20 per hour in order for 30% of that income of a 40-hour work week to cover that 2-bedroom apartment, which would cost you $1,830 on average. The minimum wage in Hawaii is $9.25 per hour. The average renter wage is $15.64. And the hours to work per week to rent a 2-bedroom home at minimum wage would be 152 hours. So in terms of just ground truth here, I think what these reflect, at least in the California numbers, I think it's fairly well reflected. Yeah, absolutely. There is a tough time for renters. But again, these are all things that should indicate to you just an excess of demand for rental properties. Do I think you can jump into one of these markets right now and acquire a property as a new investor in a way that makes sense? Probably not. If you want to poke around, I think you can, but I think you need to use unusual tactics, or maybe not unusual tactics. Tactics we've talked about in several interviews over the last few weeks with great guests we've had on the show, where you just can't do it on the MLS. Deals can be found in these, but you're going to have to do it through direct mail, direct contact. It's going to be stuff you're going to have to find that's not on the market yet, and just make contact with people who don't want to go through the rigmarole of having tons of people walk through their house or dealing with real estate agents or any of that kind of stuff. Does that stuff work? Yeah. It can, but it usually takes a lot more time and it usually takes a lot more effort. The payoff can be amazing, but always let the math be what defines whether or not you take the next step. Don't let the fever of the moment push you into making a poor decision, because not only do you want it to be positive cash flow, you want a buffer if you believe we're going to be going into a downturn, and that can be tough. Now, as a little bit more ground truth, right? Let's just talk a little bit about that. As you know, I have gotten very excited about areas in Tennessee and other areas outside of California. And, I think I was having a little bit of trouble looking past my own bias. So the lesson I'm trying to pass on today is, if you're someone like me who was maybe a little bit more seduced by the faraway places that sounded really awesome, and they may be awesome, and I'd love to still go out there. I still have a soft spot in my heart for Chattanooga. I do not know why. Maybe it's the song of the Chattanooga Choo Choo. Who knows? But I was really swayed by their aggressive move of putting fiber throughout the entire city, and that drawing a lot of high-tech stuff. That just sounds like a very sexy mix that could spell a very robust market for an investor. So yeah, that's still hot for me. But I found myself ignoring markets kind of in my own backyard, simply because growing up here, there were areas I just didn't really like very much. But you know what? Here's the truth. Here's the thing an investor needs to learn. You're not going to live in the investment property you own. Again, it should be a math problem. So why am I saying this? Well, there's a city a little bit further south of me, not way south. I mean, it's not hours and hours away. It's close enough that I could very easily manage a property that I have for rent there. And it's a city called Watsonville. Some of you may have heard it. It's the artichoke capital of the world, or so I understand. And to its credit, it has some beautiful buildings in its downtown. If you're somebody who finds cool old architecture very, very sexy, old downtown Watsonville has got some great stuff. They have some amazing classic sort of mid-20th century, early 20th century architecture that is just beautiful. I love it. It's fantastic stuff. And the city is going through a little bit of a revitalization. Now, I was doing a little bit of market research. Now, how was I doing it? I wasn't using any magical real estate agent tools, as I could have been. I was using the same stuff you have access to. I was using Trulia. And what I was doing was I was trying to find pockets of areas where I knew that acquisition costs were lower, and I was really focusing more on what things are renting for. So I set my little filter on Trulia to anything with 3 bedrooms or more, 2 bedrooms or more, but maxing out, and with a maximum price of X, Y, or Z, whatever the amount was, in terms of minimum rent, for minimum rents. And what I found when I then started comparing acquisition costs to rental amounts was, holy moly, given what it would cost to purchase a place down here, I could be positive cash flow without a whole lot of worry. And the amount of money, the amount of capital I'd have to come up with to make the acquisition isn't nuts. So here's what I'm going to suggest you do. I want you to take off the personal blinders that you might have. For instance, if I had someone contact me who had an issue with me because we talked about Atlanta being a great place to invest. And someone reached out to me and said, I was born and raised in Atlanta. Atlanta sucks. There's no way I'd want to invest in Atlanta. Tell me more about Tennessee. And of course, the logical side of my brain said, hey, you know what? If the math works, what do you care? And it was one of those examples of, hey, Robert, take your own stinking advice, man, and start looking around in your areas. And this all sort of clicked for me as I was doing this browsing yesterday, and I realized there are places right in my backyard that make ridiculous numeric sense. And when I look at how affected some of these areas were in the previous downturn, I'm not seeing ridiculous crashes. Watsonville was relatively okay, or at least the amount that it was affected, I could easily calculate and give myself enough leisurely margin there that if something bad did happen, I wouldn't see a huge impact on me or my investments. So I'm going to suggest you do the same thing. I want you all to take a moment, and if you've kind of poo-pooed your own local area because you were born and raised there and you never liked the people you met from town X, or whenever you drove through town Y, you always thought it looked like a dump. I was a kid who was born and raised in West San Jose, Cupertino area, kind of a spoiled area, tended to be a little bit more upper suburban style living. So I had all these preconceived notions in my head going all the way back to what was going on in these other outer communities. And frankly, I never let the math speak for itself on those. And now I have, and I have found some areas that just from a number standpoint make ridiculously good sense. So I want you to do the same thing. Just make it a quick exercise. Go into Trulia, start centered on your area. Because remember, one of the folks we interviewed just last week was talking about how much importance he put on starting. If you're starting out, go with your local area. Make it something you can get to if you need to. And there's absolutely a value to that. We've also talked about how, given technology and your ability to sort of reach very far digitally, doing something in another area that simply is a good choice because of the way the math works is still a reasonable way to go. That first acquisition doesn't need to be out there and crazy. Even in a crazy area like mine, if I'm willing to go outside of that mushroom cloud of crazy buying and selling, you're still able to find some deals. So, or at least deals that work from an investment standpoint. So let me suggest you take that up and try it out. What's really funny is I'm not finding many multifamily units in Watsonville that fit this bill, but I'm finding tons of single families that tend to fit the bill, particularly condos. So I'm not sure what the deal is there, but I'm going to look a little bit more into it. I might even take a trip down to Watsonville to look at some of these myself next week. And if so, I will bring you right along with me and we can chat about it some more. But for now, your homework, reevaluate assumptions you've made about your local marketplace and see if you can't find places that make financial sense. All right, folks. And if you would like kind of a guide to how to figure that stuff out, getting from the macro large view into that more neighborhood view of areas to look for great deals, let me suggest you join the Rebel Underground, where you can get access to a quick video that will give you the rundown on how to do that. So how do you become a member of the Rebel Underground? Simply text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. That's text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. and you're all set. Follow the prompts that follow, and you are in, and you will get an email that'll not only welcome you to the group, but it'll also give you a link to the video. If you would prefer to do it online without using your phone, you can simply go to the show notes for today's show at therebelbroker.com, and there'll be a link there that says join the Rebel Underground, and jump through those hoops, and same result, you'll get an email welcoming you to the Rebel Underground with a link to that video. All right, folks, I hope you have gotten some value out of today's show. I think the homework could really open your eyes to some cool potential opportunities. And as always, the hope is that the amount of time you've invested into this show, you've gotten more than what you invested in terms of return and value. So I hope that's been a goal we have achieved today. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I'll talk to you all next time.